Hi, this is Robin's Arts and Crafts. This next project is a needle felting project. It's really simple for beginners. I'm going to be needle felting some decorated Easter eggs. Come and join me. For this project, you'll need undyed wool roving. You notice that it runs in a particular direction, the grain of the wool. You'll also need some dyed wool roving. It comes in a bag like this if you get it at Paper, Scissors, Stone. That's my favorite source to get it. You'll also need these felting needles. I like the star ones, that's what they're called. They have the yellow tips on them. The needles are different from regular needles in that they have these little barbs on them, which catches the wool as you stab into it and causes it to tangle, which is what felting is. You also will need a foam pad, which I actually forgot when I was doing this project. You can do it without it technically, but it'll be a lot harder. These are some that I have been working on already. One of them is finished and the other is I'm still working on it. To begin, you want to roll the wool, and you want to do it really firmly and tightly in the center. It will help with the felting. You can see how firm that is. It shouldn't be really squishy. Then continue rolling the excess wool around it to form sort of an egg shape. And then you want to hold it in place. And once you start stabbing it with the needle, it will hold the fibers in because it will begin to felt it. You can see about how deep there you want to stab. If you're stabbing any deeper than where the needle starts to get thick, it's just going to be sort of felting the inside rather than the outside of the wool, which is not what you want. So usually I place my finger right at the point where it starts to get thin to stop myself from stabbing any deeper. So if you see an area that's sticking up, as you stab it, it will cause it to push in, and if there's a place that's missing, you can just add a little bit more to make it thicker. So here I'm just adding a little extra tuft of the wool and stabbing it into place. As long as it's the same color, you won't notice the pieces that you add. You can also shape it a little bit by squeezing it into shape as well, and that will alter the shape of it a bit. Since I have a lot of experience with this, I don't really have to have the foam pad, but it really makes it a lot easier, and especially if you're working with children, you're going to want one. You can use a piece of thick foam. I like to take the stuff that comes out of packaging. They have foam pads that you can purchase as well that are designed specifically for needle felting, which are a lot nicer, and you will find those in with the needle felting supplies. You can see here how you don't want to just tear at the side of the wool. You want to find the end and unroll it so that you're keeping the grain of the wool running in a direction because it's useful. And I'm taking a light pink color and paying attention to the grain of the direction that it's running and going against the egg and just holding the end down and felting it into place before I tear off how much I think I need, because you want to make sure you have the right amount. So it's easier just to start at the end and tear it off after you get around to the other side. You want to avoid cutting the wool. I know some people do that, but it leaves a blunt end that doesn't really blend in easily. So you always want to tear it as opposed to cutting it. So once again, just covering it all in the color. And the reason I do the undyed wool on the inside is because it's far less expensive than the dyed roving. So you want to make all of the insides of your projects out of the undyed wool roving, unless price isn't an issue for you. So again, I'm looking for the end of the wool rather than just tearing it up. I'm going to create different colored stripes, as you can see. So now I'm going in with the yellow the exact same way that I did the pink, just felting the end down before I tie it off. You want to be really careful around the edges and really get those fixed into place before you start really felting it all together. Here you can see where I'm really carefully separating the little stray hairs of the yellow so that they don't accidentally felt over the pink, and creating a really defined line between the two. I'm repeating the same process again for the green stripe. The thing that I really enjoy about needle felting is that you can just throw it in a bag and take it with you. So if you're sitting at an appointment waiting, you can pull it out and work on it for a little bit. There isn't a mess to clean up like paint. You don't have to, for example, pay attention to counting stitches if you like knitting, for example. So you really can sort of zone out while you're doing it. You don't really need to be in a real focused space, and you can therefore just put it down and pick it back up if you only have 5 minutes to work on it. So it's a really accessible craft for people that are busy and only have little chunks of time, and it's very portable. Also, it's very light, so that helps. See that little missing part right there where it was too thin, so I'm just going to go add a little bit more over the thin spot. It's really easy and really forgiving. I'm purposely leaving some little blank dots at the end so that I can add a different color, little dots on the end of the eggs. So here I'm adding a little blue dot. You want to go around the edge and carefully tuck in the little stray pieces of wool and stab them in exactly where you want them. That's how you do little designs. And once you get it mostly in place, you can start felting a lot more quickly. Remembering not to stab too deeply again. I've done this project a lot with kindergartners. Of course, you have to tell them to put the needle down when they're not looking at what they're doing, or they will stab themselves, but they're completely capable of doing these projects. You really need to go back over the entire surface and make sure that the whole thing is really well felted. Here I'm adding a little silhouette of a bunny. I really wanted to use pastel colors, but it is a little bit difficult to see, so I apologize for that. It would have been better to use something with a little higher contrast, but it'll end up really cute. So this is the little bunny's head, and I'm carefully going around and catching all those loose little fibers and putting them down in the right spot rather than just letting them be loose, so that it really creates a defined shape. So here's his little body. And his little bottom foot. You might need a couple layers of the color to get it solid enough. It really just depends on what you're working with and what look you're going for. This is his little arm. You can see how I had to fold it into the right shape before I try to place it on there, because that sometimes is really helpful. Rolling the wool into a little circle shape for his tail before I place it down, and simply felting it into place. It needed another layer. Sort of trying to decide what direction I want his ear to go, and ended up going with backward. This is his little Easter egg. I simply rolled it into a little flat circle shape, the same as the tail. And adding a little more to make it a little bit thicker. Here I'm trying to decide how to add some grass. Sometimes you have to try it out a couple times and see what works. And different parts of the wool work better than others, so I ended up going with a thicker piece and twisting it so that it would start out real skinny under the egg and then get thicker, sort of like leaf shapes. So the twist will stay right at the center under the egg. I ended up twisting the little tip of it just so I could get a real sharp point, and then I will take the extra little fibers that are sticking out and fold them back onto the rest of the image so they'll just blend in. Repeating the process for the other side. This time the ends of the wool is cooperating a little better, so I didn't have to twist the ends of it. It just sort of was already in the right shape. Sometimes it works out like that nicely. So here you can see the basic design. It's pretty simple. So once you think the project is finished, in order to really felt it so that it won't fall apart, you really need to go over the entire surface and felt it very evenly so it will hold together. You want to remember not to go any deeper than the place where the needle starts to get thick, so that you're not felting the inside rather than the surface. So just give it a nice, even once over the whole surface of your project. I think it came out really nicely.
Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed my video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me online at robinsnestartschool.com.